Körper, Geld und Seele, wo Spiritualität auf Marketing trifft. Hier hörst du Stories, Wissen, Klarheit. Hier triffst du Menschen, die bewegen. Hier beginnt dein nächster Schritt.
Welcome to a new episode from Körper, Geld und Seele. Today's guest is Alexis. Alexis spent many years seeking through substances, clubs, bars, video games, Buddhism, yoga, meditation, breathwork, Qigong, and countless spiritual practices. Eventually, the search itself came into question. To what is often called non-duality, there was a recognition that what was being sought was never absent, that there's nowhere to get to, no separate self that can awaken, and no path leading to what already is. Today, Alexis shares his message in meetings, talks, and conversations around the world. A message that challenges some of the most fundamental assumptions about spirituality, enlightenment, free will, and personal identity. Alexis, welcome to Körper, Geld und Seele.
Danke schön. Thank you very much for having me.
And today we have a second guest, my good friend Apitam. We joined together the meeting from Alexis in Berlin, and he asked to join, and happy to see you here too.
Yes, thank you, Jan. And I'm very happy to be here.
Before we start with the questions. Could you give a little introduction in the topic of non-duality for people who never heard about it before?
Sure. So non-duality apparently stems from the word Advaita, which usually exactly translates as not two. And this has been identified as a philosophy, as a practice, as a way of life, as different things like that. But essentially, it actually, I would suggest, defies definition and confinement to any kind of practice or application. Non-duality in its total expression is not something to live by nor to use, but rather an absolute undivided natural reality that is everything. It's all that there is. So all that is seeing, hearing, tasting, touching, smelling, thinking, and feeling, all imaginable perception is not two, but naturally what can seem to appear is duality, and that would then become the seer and the seen rather than just seeing. So dualistic landscape is subject and object. It is also me and you. It is here and there. It is now and then. It is cause and effect. So any dualistic paradigm is merely an appearance, but actually the natural reality, being everything, is not divided and is not dualistic. And that's what we talk about in and around things in these sessions, these retreats across the world as well as online. And what appears to happen there in those sessions is some kind of energetic relaxation. It can seem to take place in and through a body, and that can be felt, for lack of a better word, as a great relief to reveal nothing particularly new, but just a very clear, open seeing that there's only this, what can't be named, but for lack of better way of putting it, non-duality. It's all that there is.
Cool, thank you. So before you began your spiritual search, what was it that you were actually looking for?
Well, I guess in hindsight, it was just anything that could make me happy or make me feel happy. Anything that I thought would make me happy, I would go after. And for me, it was music and films and a lot of material stuff. So I had a lot of possessions, and I had an identity. I had various identities. But it was never really placed in one particular thing. I was just sort of going here, there, and everywhere, like many people do, looking for some kind of fulfillment in whatever I could appear to find.
Mm-hmm. And would you say that in a way, every person who thinks who has a separate me is like has this feeling of lack?
It seems to be a paradigm in a way, and what I mean by that is it's as though for many of us we are born into there's just being born, there's just the birth of the baby, and then after some time in the timeline there is this conditioning that seems to set into the organism. And as that goes on, we are reaffirmed as separate individuals with control. We move around a landscape of separation. We are interacting with other separate people, and this is a psychosomatic misconception that the whole body-brain system has misperceived itself as a separate creature that inhabits a separate world. Through that misperception is confusion. There's the confusion of thinking and believing that there's a chooser inside the body, rather than the body just doing its own thing effortlessly, and continuity. So timeline is seen to be a real landscape, and that seems to create a kind of momentum in the body, which leads to feeling dis-ease and lack. And when that seems to be happening, seeking appears to be happening, because the sense of lack breeds the sense of seeking for something better than what presently is. And that part of the story, I'm sure we all know very well. Yeah. Yeah. Whether it's material.
It very well, yeah.
Yeah. Whether it's material seeking or spiritual seeking, religious or philosophical, it's that energy trying to fill itself up. Yeah.
I understand. So, but the spiritual search in the beginning gave it something to you, or like the feeling that it can fill the lack?
The spiritual seeking for me, yeah. So for me, it began in January 2016 that I started to question the nature of reality a bit more seriously, and because prior to that, it was just very much a material situation, but somehow or other, perhaps through the work I did, I was looking after sick people and people with disabilities and brain injuries and stuff, and I was confronted with the fragility of the human condition. And during that time, during that occupation, I did watch people die, and I think in that something sort of aroused curiosity, shall we say, in the body-brain system about life and afterlife and whatnot. So January 2016, I started to meditate. I started to look into Buddhism. Prior to that, I was pretty much completely an atheist. But then I started to explore different ways of life and different ways of looking at life. And that led to meditating, and that led to, an inquisition into myself as well as everything else. And it just took off its own momentum. So it formed a new paradigm where the body was beginning to think, feel, and believe in different ways. Yeah. So then I got into Buddhism and yoga and meditation and Qigong, Taoism, and different spiritual teachers of the ages as well as the modern day. Yeah.
And you experience some kind of conscious states with that?
Conscious state. Well, it seemed like someone was there at the time, conscious of what they were doing, if that's what you mean. Yes, it seemed like there was the experience and the presence of a separate self who was questioning the nature of reality and choosing to embark on a spiritual quest after a material one for so long. Yeah. and that through the practices, through the implementing of certain practices, there was the sense that consciousness was deepening or emerging, or that things were changing in my experience as a person.
Mm-hmm. And you said you have been an atheist before. What would you say now? Would you call yourself an atheist, or do you believe? I mean, it's just a word, but do you think there is something like God, like that? This, what is all there is like God? Would you call it like that?
Well, I used to have a bit of a problem with such words, but now I think it's lovely. I just think it's another word for that which ultimately can't be named, God or the divine energy, shunyata, emptiness. It's all there. There is only that one. It seems as though there's only energy, or there's only oneness, and it can appear as a multiplicity. It can appear as a landscape of elements and DNA, organisms, and gases and planets. It can appear as anything at all, but ultimately it is all one undivided energy. Yeah. But we could call it God if we were wanting to be poetic and romantic about it.
Okay.
So it's not the word which is a problem, but it's what's created inside of the belief system, what it is. Like you also said, like there's no path because there's nobody there who can go on a path. But for me, it's like, it feels like when people say I'm on a path, that's a problem, that they think that they are on a path. The path is not the problem, huh?
Yeah, it's not a problem. It's just that through the psychosomatic misperception of reality being timely, I really think, feel, and believe that I am going somewhere else, in time. And and with that, we can have dreams, we can have desires, and we can have goals and whatever. But for that particular energy, it is anticipating an imaginary what's next that is never what is present. And so it's anticipating a future state, a future event, future experience of some kind. And that keeps it in its own loop of anticipating change. And within that anticipation is a dis-ease and resistance to what is. Yeah.
We also had some personal question, like, do you have a good relationship with your parents?
Yes, I would say so. Yeah, my parents are still alive and together, thank goodness, and I love them both very much. Yes, and they do me.
So did your personal or the people you hang around with, friends and family, did the relationship to them changed after the discovery that there is no one, or how would you describe that?
It didn't change massively with my parents. There is more relaxedness between us now and more intimacy. There's less of a need for me to be changing them, or vice versa. Actually, I'm very fortunate in that sense, because we've never been in that situation where we're really demanding things of each other. So that's very nice. And we're very relaxed when we meet up, and we don't never talk about this, but we're just relaxed. We watch TV and go on a walk or have dinner together, which is lovely. Yeah, the relationship with my brother did change in a similar way. It's sort of similar there. We talk about it a little bit because he's very much into spirituality and a certain religion. And friends, this changed more than anything else. So my lifestyle now is very different to how it was. Yeah, because I'm no longer involved in spiritual communities. And so the people who I associated myself with, that landscape did change. Yeah. So there were certain people that I was not in any way resistant to, but just the energy and the attraction just sort of dissolved really. And I found myself around other people.
But it automatically happened.
Yeah, or
More or
just
less.
it's the beauty of it really, isn't it? That it just found its own unique new way of expressing itself. And, certain foods or certain drinks and certain people appear to be happening. And, I might move towards this person or not towards that person and towards this and that. It's just simple preferences and resonance, I guess. It's about attraction and resonance. Yeah. Yeah.
And did some people thought you were becoming a little crazy when you start telling them that there's
not so many people who I was meeting up with. There was some questioning and challenging of it from friends, but not very much. Not very much. I mean, that's more so on the internet, yeah, which is understandable because, as you said in the introduction, this does challenge what most people on the face of the earth appear to be believing, and so I understand when people are very resistant and rejecting of what's being shared, because what's being shared is so utterly unlike what most of us appear to have heard ever. And it does appear, without wanting to, but it does appear to challenge what we think, feel, and believe to be true, to be real. Yeah. Yeah.
So I have a question. The dropping of that illusion to be someone, yeah, was it like a continuous process, or was it more like it suddenly happened and then this idea of being somebody never came back, or how was it?
Yeah, so in that part of the storyline, I was listening to Tony Parsons every day. After looking into spiritual teachers and teachings, I eventually found him. At first, just like other people will and have had resistance to this message, I had a little bit too, because it was so unlike anything I'd ever heard. It didn't seem to match up with any religion or spiritual tradition that I had been involved in. So at first, understandably, there was like, whoa, this is mad. And yet somehow or other, I was totally fascinated by it. And I think underneath my conceptual mind, if we could put it that way, was an impersonal yes, and a resonating, or what we often call a resonance on a deeper level. You could say a subconscious level. There was this sort of, I don't know if I like this, but it seems totally true. It seems like totally the truth. And so, yeah, there was a resonance, and what that looked like was listening to that quite a bit. And it seemed like it was I use this word percolating because it was as though I was thinking about it and reflecting on it, perhaps even contemplating it. But underneath that cognitive energy was like a felt sense of it being true. And that seemed to relax. The whole body system seemed to relax in and around that, really. And so that took time for that to happen and take place. And the body started to realize or recognize on a deeply psychosomatic level that no one is in there. No separate self is in there. And everything is happening impersonally by itself. And of course, that's where we could so easily hear this message as such a rejection of the person. And in a way it is, but it doesn't take away the intimacy. It doesn't take away the care and the tenderness and the intimacy of life. It actually amplifies those things. But it just doesn't, it's just very clear that it doesn't revolve around a separate self. Yeah. And that's although that sounds so mad to so many of us, is actually an unfathomable relief for the whole body-mind system, the nervous system, but also it's as though the whole of reality is relaxed around that too, because we're constantly projecting our feelings, thoughts, and beliefs onto reality. So when those projections aren't there, the whole landscape is at ease, in contrast. Yeah.
So apparently this seems to be a slowly process. But was there like one point when you, for example, start giving talks about, like in a story of somebody get enlightened and then bang, everything changed?
Yeah, so there was one particular moment when I was listening to Tony one night, and then suddenly I was looking at my hand, and then I was not looking at my hand anymore. There was just the hand being the hand, the fullness of reality being that hand without someone looking at it. And that was a very striking, and we could say provocatively, a catalytic moment in the timeline where it's very clear in that moment, not to anyone, but that there is no one. Very clear that there's no one at all, and that all of reality is impersonally inhabited by itself. And yeah, that was what is often called a glimpse, where it was like a light bulb moment. And after that, it seemed as though that habituated thought, feeling, belief system resurfaced again, but it didn't fully resurface. It didn't fully come back. It only came back about halfway or something. And over the next few weeks, it just seemed to fade away, because it was like a fuse had been blown in the body-mind system that could no longer sustain that thought, feeling, belief system. And as that went on, I was teaching Qigong at the time, but I lost interest for teaching that, and I wanted to share non-duality instead, or rather it wanted to share itself through this body. And so it did. And so the more I talked about it, the time went on, it was clearer and clearer that everything is impersonally happening, everything is effortlessly happening, and in the speaking of it is also effortlessly and impersonally happening. Yeah. And so I started that in a cafe one Tuesday evening, and
Yeah. That's funny. Yeah.
yeah. Well, the funniest thing is that no one came back. Yeah.
But that didn't stop that energy to want it to come out.
Yeah, just really wanted. Yeah, exactly. It just really wanted to express itself. It just felt such a relief. Like, yeah, and the passion of it just really was like, wow, this is like the best thing ever. It's the most compassionate thing anyone can ever say or hear. So it persevered. Yeah.
Yeah.
And did you went to Tony Parsons and maybe you talked to him, or maybe it was just a feeling that I also got it now, or I understood?
Well, I was just primarily watching his videos on YouTube for the longest time. And then I called him on the phone a few times, and we had a bit more of a chat about it, which I was very grateful for him to actually being available and open to doing that with people, which he still does, I think. So I, for no charge, I just called him up once a week or something and chatted with him about what was going on. And yeah, without validating my experience, there was a really beautiful, loving, sort of mutual understanding, to put it very dualistically. It was like, it was very clear that something was resonating, and there was like residual bit still there, and I was just talking with him about that openly and honestly, and he was very, very present with that, like hearing it, so to speak. And that just seemed to kind of impersonally facilitate something which we failed to describe in language, to be honest. But that was very nice. And then eventually, it just seemed clear that this is speaking. It's moving through this body, whether it likes it or not. And we carried on chatting about it. And then eventually I went to see him in February 24. So yeah, it was about October or November 23 when this seemed to be collapsing. The so-called me paradigm was collapsing. And then I started to talk around the same time. And I seen him in February 24, about 4 or 5 months later. Yeah, in person. Yeah.
And for the listeners, like, it can happen that there is this collapse, but there's really like no path at all who leads to this, right?
Yeah, it's because path is in that landscape of timeline, and that's one of the fundamental parts of the illusory paradigm is next. So so next in the imagination of the dream and the dreamer is it's an anticipatory energy of something else other than what's appearing to happen. And so the one place that it can't make a path towards is to what is already. Every path in its own world is going somewhere else. It's trying to make something change, but you can't get to what is already, and that's its predicament. So every time it tries to make some kind of effort, all it's really doing there is seizing up. It's sort of overlooking the immediacy of the natural reality.
And how is your daily life now? You still have some kind of routine? Like, for example, still sitting like something in meditation, or how does your daily life look like?
Yeah, so I love to meditate. I just did it before this session started, and I still do yoga and Qigong. I just do it now because it's enjoyable. And I also share that publicly online and in person. And I also, like to go to cafes and walk in parks and explore different things. I like to study different things. I like chatting and hanging out with friends. And I spend a lot of time doing this, a lot of time talking about this with people. Yeah. Arranging all sorts of things. Yeah. It's a full-time job. Yeah.
And if people come to you with a spiritual path and they really deeply believe in that path, what do you tell them?
Well, I have no desire to change anyone. I mean, I don't have any desire to put anyone down or change their experience or their beliefs or whatever. There might be an open, sincere conversation about what's going on for this, or what appears to be going on for this, and what appears to be going on for them, and we can chat about that. And if there's an openness to talk about this, then that will take its own rhythm. It's a bit of a dance with people who want to talk about it or not. I'm always open to hearing about what people think, feel, and believe. I think it's very interesting. Yeah.
At one meeting, you shared like storytelling about the universe and the mother and the child. I really liked that story. Would you like to repeat it in a short version, maybe?
Yeah, sure. It's one of my favorite poeticisms to talk about this reality in a very poetic way, not a conceptually concise way. And that metaphor, that poeticism is that the whole of the natural reality is undivided, it's unpolarized. That's the conceptual part. But the poetic part is that's the Divine Mother. It's a maternal embrace that is actually absolutely everything. And it can appear to give birth to a child of separation. And that child of separation we call me, or myself, or I am. And the child is born from the macrocosmic maternal embrace of everything. But the child doesn't realize that. The child feels separate from that maternal embrace. And so he or she looks around for that maternal embrace everywhere he or she goes. And so through that is it's a bit like a child running around a supermarket for her mummy on every aisle, but not being able to find her. So she's distressed naturally. And she's looking down the aisle of spirituality, of religion, of shamanism, of psychedelia. But everywhere she goes, she can't find her because she's actually all that there is. She's even the child. She's even the child looking for herself. And in the whole dream landscape of searching, there is that disease. And what apparently the last chapter of that story is that the child simply relaxes and is lulled to sleep by this song of infinite freedom. And in that, the child falls asleep into the loving arms of the divine embrace of everything. And then they're reunited. Subject and object are reunited. Mother and child reunited to reveal nothing new, but rather an undivided totality of reality, which is simply all that there is. Non-duality.
That's beautiful.
Mm.
I'm very.
Mm. Tony
And
used to call it the perfect lover. He had his own way of talking about it, which is also very beautiful.
And in your daily life, you still have like personal, not personal, but like
Yes, unapologetically, yes. Yeah, it's a you know, like I'm not going to pretend that, you know, it's lovely. It's lovely having goals. It's lovely having drive and charisma and enthusiasm for life, despite no one there living it or choosing it or orchestrating it. It's all what's happening impersonally. But yeah, it's lovely to show up to places and, you know, fill out rooms and get together and chat and laugh and cry. It's all part of the dance and the play of light, really. So yeah, those things still appear naturally.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like it's more. When you talk about this, it feels like it's more like sitting in a cinema, watching a movie, being completely in it, but at the same time, there's nobody who is identified with the play. Is that something?
In a way, the audience member has fallen into the movie, and there's just complete absorption. Yeah. So there's no one separate from the movie to be identified as this or that character or this or that scene. There's just the whole play of light, which is no longer seen as an object. So it is its own reality, yeah, and there's no one there. So the absorption is the dissolution of the subject, whichever seemed to be watching the show. Then there's just the no-show. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
And you often used to say like, if there's a me, there's this searching for what is next. And
Yeah, so it's just very, you know, the three words I often use in response to questions and reflections like that is simple, ordinary, and natural. It's absolutely nothing special. Those three words kind of disempower the notion that this is something particularly special or mystical. It's a very simple, natural, and ordinary way of being that everybody is born as. I would strongly suggest every baby that's born, there's just the wide open sensation and vibration of appearance. And that's how it is, really. There's the simplicity of what's appearing to happen. It's very ordinary. It's you know, like daily life is just as it is, and it's very natural because it's not something that is glorified in any way. And there's this, and I suppose in the naturalness in particular is an ease, an apparent ease, in the contrast of when it seemed like there was something else to achieve or prove or improve or attain. Yes, it's like the ease of this because it's already whole. This is already wholeness. Yeah. I was so busy looking for it in a conditioned thing, but not realizing that it was right here all along.
And I guess a lot of people will never get they're there, but they never realize that they're there. So they all life they are stressed to find something, but that is also already perfect, right?
Unconditionally speaking, yes, it's perhaps not perfect to what they might be thinking, feeling, or believing perfection to be on their terms and conditions. But unconditionally, it is all. It's the whole. It's the whole. Yeah. The thing is that for that particular perception of reality, this is never enough. This is never enough, and it could always be better. It's too, and in that, it's too invested in the way it wants this reality to be to ever accept the way reality actually already is. Yeah, it's too invested in a particular state or experience.
What I think is really difficult to imagine that there's nothing behind, or there's no one who knows about everything, like a person, a god with a beard who knows everything, that it just happened automatically somehow.
Yes, effortless ease, or wu wei, the natural reality of the flow of everything impersonally dancing its own dance, the cosmic opera, which has not got someone behind it pulling the strings of the puppets in life. Everything is immediate. It's immediate. It's undivided. So it can't have a higher or a lower intelligence underneath, behind, or above or within. It's completely all immersive. And that's an impossibility in a way, and yet it's completely everything. It's just, yeah, the way in which humans have been conditioned to think, feel, and believe is very understandably imagining that something is running the show, that something is causing reality to appear this way, to behave this way. But as though reality isn't seen in that divided landscape, it doesn't really make sense anymore that anything else could be married up to this, because this just seems to be all-encompassingly everything. Yeah, and it's so full and it's so free. Doesn't seem to be anything else other than that.
So there's no need to be known, because it is that.
Yes. Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. So you said that there are goals or things maybe wanting to be achieved or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a question, like, from my personal experience, like most of the time I'm in peace, and that changed drastically during the last 10 years, I would say. I was very much in, I don't know, in stories, captured in stories, all kind of stories of what this body experienced in the past and couldn't let go. And what I experience nowadays is something like sometimes emotions are coming up. The strongest one are coming up when there is a I coming with a thought, yeah, like I can't do, or I want to, or I don't want to. When these thoughts are coming up, like, then immediately strong emotions are coming up, and I'm like, oh, who is that? Yeah, that's telling this thought, yeah, and for me, it's really helpful when I recognize that there is an I involved telling a story right now, just to go back and feel what there is right now, instead of like listening to the thoughts and believing the patterns which comes with it, coming from, I don't know, former trauma experiences or something like that. Yeah. So is there still like thought patterns coming up which feel like really strongly in the first moments, or is that all gone, or how would you describe that?
Thinking appears, memories appear, ideas, planning, analyzing. It's all as it was. It's just the only apparent difference, well, maybe a couple of differences, is that it doesn't seem to be observed by a separate self anymore. That was never really there. It was a mirage. It was a kind of psychosomatic echo that seemed to be echoing back to itself. And yet it never really appeared to even do that, but that's what it was interpreted as. And in that landscape, things really seemed revved up in terms of mental activity. It all kind of quieted down when there was no longer a sense that it's being observed by someone. And that's a very natural way that, thinking can just be thinking. There's no one there to get thinking right or wrong. There's still preferences, and that's all part of the makeup as well. But it seemed to quiet down for the most part. And certain qualities of thinking didn't seem to show up anymore, and shame would be one of them. Yeah, that doesn't seem to show up so much nowadays, if at all.
And I don't know.
Fear can appear, but doesn't appear to as much as it did. Yeah. Again,
Okay.
it's it doesn't really seem to show up that much. It's just that, there's no sense that there's certain things that will definitely never happen, or that they definitely will. But yeah, anything can appear. Fear would probably appear if the body was in danger, for example. Yeah. Yeah, but not like an existential worry or angst or anxiety. That doesn't really seem to appear for me, for this body. Yeah.
So also on this side, on like thought patterns, and like I had a lot of like going around in circles with thought patterns, like starting at one point and then coming to the next thought, and then after some time coming back to the first thought, and this was going on sometimes for days and stuff like that. Yeah. And that, I don't know how it happened, but it's not happening anymore. Yeah. Sometimes when something happens outside and something get triggered, it's happening for 5 or 10 minutes, and that's fine. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, sure. This sounds very similar. Yeah. 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 There was a lot less importance given to the mental activity, and there's still the recognition that there are things important in a relative, situation, but the weight and the value given to everything was significantly reduced, and that's not a dismissal of those appearances. It's just a lightness of them.
Can you give an example? I imagine maybe you have a meeting, and I don't know, the train does not arrive at the right time or something, and then
yeah, so it can appear in any which way. There was a situation that actually happened a bit like that yesterday when I was driving back from one side of town to my home, to the other side of town. And it took me about 40 minutes to drive about 2 miles. It was crazy. It probably would have been quicker to walk home. And I had a meeting, on the dot. Like, I left it. I only just got back through the door right on time, and that was quite a stressful situation to be in, because me, even today, like finding out that I was a bit late for today's session, like that conditioning still runs through the body. I don't like being late. I like to be punctual. It's just the way I appear to work, and so that stress can still appear, but there's just, again, there's just no sense that it's happening to a separate self that needs to be not stressed, or needs to be, calming themselves down or composing themselves in a better way then it's very easy and natural. And that can be quite stressful sometimes, but it's okay. Like, that's very normal. Yeah, the shamey energy would come in the apparent past and say, I shouldn't be thinking these thoughts, feeling these feelings, behaving these ways. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I think it's always a bit funny is that the non-duality talkers I know, they were all kind of really heavy searchers, spiritual on a spiritual path, like they were really deep into it in a way.
Yeah. Yeah.
But like there is no coincidence that it happened to the people who have been investigated so much in the search, or is there a coincidence?
I don't really know, to be honest. I mean, I think that people who end up speaking about this, they are really, there may be a correlation that many of them have really looked around, like really looked everywhere, like turned over every single stone that they could possibly find. And that can lead them to a message of non-duality. But then also there are people who just don't speak about this. They don't really have any interest in speaking. They don't really have much interest in public speaking or any other kind of speaking. Maybe writing happens or whatnot. But I think also spiritual seeking is very popular nowadays. I mean, it's a very popular thing that people do, to go to meditation classes, whether that's secular or spiritual, to go to yoga sessions and retreats. It's a very, very popular thing. And so the chances are is that many people have done a lot of that. And the people who speak, there's been that conditioning there as well. And they have come to understand and enjoy what this is about. And there's such a resonance and a joy and a love of it that there's that desire to share about this.
So I hope that the people who are listen to it and never heard it before get an idea about it, if that is possible, or maybe have the resonance to go to to your meetings or something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's a very beautiful message. It's a very freeing message, and nothing is required. That's one of my favorite statements here, is that although what's being shared is rather provocative and challenges what so many of us have come to think, feel, and believe as true and real, there's no requirement to think, feel, or believe that. There's no requirement of anybody to be a certain way. And in that is the apparent ease. And I also call it the basking. When this is as it is, it's very open, it's very natural. There's no way of getting this right or wrong. There's no homework, there's no exams, there's nothing to improve on this level. And that can allow bodies to really just really sort of drop in and release these misconceptions of reality. And there's a tremendous ease. It's what we might even call compassion, because then nothing is really required and everything is allowed. And this is it. Yeah.
So thank you very much. And one question I always used to ask in Körper, Geld und Seele is, what is the funniest thing that happened in your business or now with your talks?
Yeah, so it's a hard question to answer, but I think more often than not, it's a great joy laughing at oneself. Not that there is actually a self to laugh at, but the humiliation and the humility of laughter is a divine thing. And so I often find myself laughing at myself during these sessions, when I'm coming out with random statements and things, and people are asking, about what it's like for you or me or whatever, and that's very humorous. But the jokes that get shared in and around the events are really wonderful. the lightness and the humor and the play of it is it's a really beautiful thing. Yeah, it's not a very specific answer, I'm afraid, but perhaps I could just say laughing at myself is a great thing, because that takes the seriousness out of me taking myself so seriously, whatever that means for anybody, because we can very easily walk around in life taking ourselves and our stories very, very seriously. Yeah. 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 And I think, it's sort of one of the gateways, like an apparent gateway into what is already, to reveal through laughter that life is not a classroom, it's a playground. It's a playground. Yeah. That's how I look at it. Yeah. It's a playground, not a classroom. And learning takes place on the playground, of course. Learning takes place on the playground just as much as it does in the classroom, but that whole sort of rigidity is not necessary, and this is open. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds more fun to be on a playground than in a classroom.
Right.
Yeah, I'm just very, very happy that I could join in this meeting this afternoon. Like, I feel the same energy, like sitting with you in a room in a meeting. And that's always, like the last one in Berlin, I missed, like, I don't know, 80-90% of what was said, but it didn't matter. Yeah, I was just like, feels like tension was just drawn out of me. Yeah, and it was very beautiful. Yeah.
Oh, that's lovely.
That what you described, yeah, like just everything can be how it is.
Yes.
So thank you very much for joining.
Yeah, well, thank you both very much for your time and your energy and everything. It's lovely. Really appreciate this. Yeah.